good morning, afternoon, night, evening, whenever you find it most convenient to join us around the bonfire. I, as always, am Alan, the pole with the goal. As you can hear, John is not with us today, but we still have a very great squad, an OG squad. We're still missing Matt. He is somewhere in the Everglades. I am joined by my lovely jubbly of co-hosts, Tim.
Hey, good to be back with the trio.
And DJ.
That means Matt would be further south than I am. I cannot save him there.
Yeah, so we're hoping he is safe and sound. Probably not. We'll just get right into it. Just a little bit to talk about, but a bit more than a usual episode, considering that we do have another midweek match, and that being a U.S. Open Cup game, and not just any U.S. Open Cup game, a quarterfinal U.S. Open Cup game. But really quickly, first of all, the Gold Cup final is coming up fairly soon. You guys will probably know the score by the time this is out. We won't, so you guys know something that we don't. And we'll just assume that both Matt Turner and Matt Freese have both stubbed their toes in the tunnel, and Chris Brady makes his first USMNT cap, making 30 saves as well as a dub. So good luck to the boys in red, white, and blue.
Yes.
One thing, Patrick Stechnij and Patrick Loss are both invited guests of Mauricio Pochettino at this one, so they'll be at the stadium watching the game live. From that stems from when the U.S. men's national team was practicing in the Chicago Fire's facility at the beginning of the camp, and they had like goalies from the teams whose facilities they were using kind of join some of the work. And Poch was so impressed with the duo that he said, you're a part of the success, and he wants them to be there to celebrate, hopefully a victory. But either way, they'll be going. So it's good to impress like the national team coach, get on the radar of the national team.
We continue to impress with the goalkeeping machine that the academy and just the city just keeps on producing. So more goalkeepers, yay! And hopefully we
start
will
11 of them. We'll be undefeatable.
11 goalkeepers. It's kind of like they should make this in like how they have the goalie wars in the MLS All-Star, like the sort of skill games. They should do one for like 11 on 11 goalkeepers as well.
Chicago as a city, like we should just have a all goalie wars league. Like that's like there's no actual soccer played. It's just his goalie wars going back and forth.
Question: does Mike McGee get to be in it?
I think Mike McGee may be sponsoring it, so I think he can do whatever the heck he wants.
Quickly get it. Someone gets in contact with Vodka Fox or whatever he calls it.
Sneaky Fox Vodka.
That thing too.
This is fantastic news. So yeah, all right. Well, before we talk about the U.S. Open Cup quarterfinal, we do have a game that played for us yesterday, for you guys a few days ago on Saturday evening. And that is the Fire's away game at TQL in Cincinnati. Unfortunately, it was very close, but no cigar, as the Fire fell 2-1 against Cincinnati with goals from Evander in the 19th minute and Denke in the 50th minute. Zinkernagel does get one back from the Fire, MV Phillip, but it just wasn't enough, even though the Fire basically outshot and outchanced FCC. They just weren't able to pull away with any points.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the summary. It was a strong performance from the Fire. They they did significantly outchance Cincinnati. I think the first 15 minutes, the Fire it felt like it could be a really long one for the Fire in the first 15 minutes or so because they were pinned back pretty deep. They made some adjustments when they kind of realized sort of like how intense the press was going to be and the repress from Cincinnati. And I think after that, they frankly looked like the better side for like 45 minutes to 60 minutes with the rest kind of like, but ultimately like Cincinnati had, more clinical finishing than the Fire, right? Like that was the difference in this one.
Yeah. From basically, it was just especially the first goal. It was just, that was something that we were talking about with other Fire fans and just amongst ourselves. But no disrespect to Jeffrey Gall, but a lot of us definitely thought that if Chris Brady was in net, he probably would have saved that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're getting scored on by a guy that has scored at that point 11 and now 12 goals in MLS this season, right? Like number 3, I think, at the time in the Golden Boot leaderboard. Like, that's nothing to sneeze at. Like, lots of guys, get scored on by Evander, but it's still, the way that it happened. I think it was, Gall made the right choice, maybe decided to dive just like a little bit too late. And, it is what it is, right? Like, I think that was maybe the only time that you could say that something was really on him in a way that it really, maybe would not have been the same situation if Brady had been in net during the games that we've seen from him in MLS. Like, that's a pretty good job. I asked Berhalter about him after the game. Berhalter has said, nice things about the performance of Jeff Gall during this 5-game stretch. And I think that on the whole, it's been a strong series of performances from him, keeping in mind these are really some of his first MLS starts.
True.
Not just some, they are. Except for one.
Except for one, right? Like, there was the one after the red card, right? So that was the only time that he came in. He had, 65 minutes or exactly however many minutes that was after Brady's red card in the match before that. So I think in a way, not that the red card was a good thing, because it did, probably cost the Fire 2 points, because I think that that draw would have been a win if they'd been playing with 10. But, it's still in a way kind of worked out in the sense that I think a lot of people were more comfortable with the idea of Jeff Gall being in net throughout the stretch, having seen him for a game and change. And I think that it probably helped, Gall with his mentality of the whole situation after having been with the squad so long, worked every day in training, and nobody's said anything but great stuff about the way that he performs in training. But knowing that you're going to get a game is different. So he kind of already had to cross that in a way that he wasn't really expecting beforehand. And I think that probably made it a little bit easier for him.
I think it's also, in fairness to Gall, also one thing worth mentioning, and I just looked this up to make sure, were he to play 4 more games this season, it would be the most games he's ever played at a top level in the country, ever. So this is pretty much his first time playing like this. Even in Sweden, he only played, I think, give or take 20 games over 3 seasons.
Yeah, and again, he's availed himself, right? And this is the thing of I know that it's on one hand, you're a pro athlete, you should be ready to play and all that stuff. It's always different actually doing something rather than saying that you could do it, right? How many parts of your job happen, once a quarter or once a year or whatever, and you're like, oh crap, how do I do this? And am I going to do a good enough job at it, right? And I think it's the same situation here. He clearly has been doing the work to prepare himself. And again, I think Brady probably did, would have gotten a fingertip on the first goal, but you can't have everything right. And I don't think that, Gall is ultimately the reason that the Fire didn't walk away with the result.
No, I mean, as mentioned, the Fire did put up a fight, and they did get through. There's many a times where it felt like the Fire. I mean, it's not like seasons past where the moment the Fire go down, they sort of shut off. They kept on pushing back. They just weren't able to, even after the first goal that Evander put in, it felt like the Fire just kept putting on more and more pressure. They just, unfortunately, were not clinical with their chances, which is, I feel like, something that we've kind of been seeing throughout this season. Just the Fire just unable to put away those final chances.
I mean, Evander is one of the best players in the league, right? I don't think there's many ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there's only so many of those guys. I think that we've, Zinkernagel has, is an all-star. He's been the team's MVP. We've seen what he can do. Bamba, I think, had on the whole a strong game, but he's not a difference maker in the same sense that Evander is, playing different positions and all that stuff, but sort of comparable in terms of being one of the names on the squad that is big and was brought in on a big transfer fee and all of that. And it, it's not any offense to Jonathan Bamba to say that he's not at the same level as one of the best players in the league. And Kevin Denke has been phenomenal for them. I thought Pavel Buka had a good game. Like it was a strong performance from a lot of people. An active performance too from former, one-time Chicago Fire and, one time about 15,000 other teams, Kai Kamara. But, in the end, I think the Fire can take a lot from that performance in terms of the way they played, right? Like they spent a lot more time in the final third than they allowed Cincinnati to be in their final third. Part of that's the system, part of that style. Like Cincinnati is comfortable with that. I think they did well with the possession. I think that they were getting a lot of the balls into the right places. It was good seeing Leo Barroso get a start again. I thought he played pretty well, especially after an adjustment kind of early where he was almost isolated a bit too much early on, I think. And you could sort of see him. I think that it was probably coaching instruction where he sort of pulled back a little bit from going as advanced, as much of a wing in the wing back to being more of like a emphasis on the back part of the wing back. And I think that helped his game from then on. Berhalter said that he came out because he didn't quite look like he was ready to keep on going, which he's young and, he hasn't played a ton. So, but I think once he's 90 minutes fit, there's a lot of good stuff that Fire fans can look forward to seeing from the guy.
Yeah, that was the only change in comparison to the week before with the win against Charlotte was Barroso coming in. But which, I mean, kind of leads to wonder, what are we going to see in terms of our next squad on this upcoming Tuesday against Minnesota?
Yeah, I think that's, the game against Minnesota, I think this game against Cincinnati was a good preparation in a lot of ways for the game against Minnesota because they both play fairly similar styles, right? Like they both are comfortable, quick on counters. They can sit back, they can sit deep, and they can pounce on you going forward. And I think that that's basically the game plan that Minnesota's had all year. Their most recent game was Friday against FC Dallas. They won 2-1. I think on paper, if you look at the possession numbers and stuff like that, it looks like it was kind of an uncomfortable win. I think the field tilt was similar to what it was for the Fire for Dallas, where they had more of the ball. They had more of the ball in the opposition third and stuff. But that's exactly the way that Minnesota liked playing. Like they were comfortable sitting back, absorbing the pressure, being quick on the counters, and knowing they could get the difference makers at the other end to finish the job. And that's basically what happened in their game. So, I think the fact that the Fire, I think Cincinnati, this isn't a crazy opinion because if you look at the standings, FC Cincinnati are the, top of the Supporters Shield as of the time that we're recording, and Minnesota are, not. So they play similar styles. Minnesota's had a really good season, but they just, I think, are not the same level as Cincinnati. So the fact that the Fire were able to stand toe to toe with Cincinnati, and I think, clearly, I think a point would have been fair out of that one. It wouldn't have been crazy to think that the Fire could have finished one or two more of the chances they had and walked away with a win. And I think that should give them hope against a team like Minnesota because, as well as they've been playing and as much as they seem to believe in each other and believe in the system, I just don't think they've really got the high-end talent that, like, they don't have an Evander on the squad. Like, they've got some guys that are good, but they don't have anyone of that level on the team.
Yeah. When I look at the squad for Minnesota, I mean, the few names that just pop out to mind, maybe Julian Gressel in midfield, as well as St. Clair in goal. Of course, there's that ever infamous moment with Xherdan Shaqiri between St. Clair. DJ is showing the little head shake and the little shake of the finger, that little standoff that Shaqiri and St. Clair had in that one game. But I personally think
his most memorable moment in a Fire jersey, I think. Like maybe the close second, the game against Miami where he scored twice. Yeah. But like, I personally, if you just have if you've got one GIF in your head of Shaqiri in a Fire uniform, that's got to be the GIF, right?
It definitely is. I'm pretty sure I've even used that one GIF as like a background in Discord.
Yes, I can guarantee.
So yeah. But
I mean, having
Yeah.
said that, like I said, they didn't have the same like kind of high end talent. Like Kelvin Yeboah, I think is one of their top signings of all time. I don't think he was as expensive as Emmanuel Reynoso, who obviously is no longer there coming in, but like he has been strong for them. He came from Serie A, so like pretty well pedigreed player in that sense. Sang-Bin Jong is another one of their forwards that I think has been playing really well. He's even younger, I believe. I think he's only 20. And Joaquin Pereira has been solid for him. Like they've got players that have talent and are good. I don't want it. This isn't like a CF Montreal style squad where it's like assembled with like stuff from the discount bin that they found around MLS. Like this is like it's a squad that was assembled to play, right? And they've been spending some money on it, but like they don't have a guy that's going to be competing for the league MVP anytime soon, and not just because of Messi.
Yeah. Which speaking of, completely random side note, I was watching the Montreal Miami game after Messi gave an assist the other way in the second minute, and I realized that Montreal used Chelsea Dagger as their goal song, and I was like, since when? Like I don't know why I first noticed that. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, that's our song. Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I guess they are both
that's where the
white and
Blackhawks got it
blue.
from.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
I was like, hello.
Okay, we're
wait, what?
firing Tim for this.
Okay.
Grab me the
anyways.
cannon.
So yeah, So in terms of the Open Cup, we've mentioned Fire playing against Minnesota. It's actually the first game of the quarterfinals. Afterwards, at 9:30, there's going to be St. Jose against Austin. Then the next day on July 9th, you have Philly against Red Bull, and then you have Nashville against DC. So it's an all MLS affair from this point on. And
the Fire play the winner of the game that's happening at 9:30 on the same day. So that's the San Jose Austin game. They kind of put the semifinals into like regional pods. The Fire got sent west, which I guess geographically makes a little bit more sense. But hey, but it does mean longer flights and stuff like that. And the Fire will be on the road if they do advance against the winner of San Jose Austin.
That is true. Which we do have. If I remember fairly recently, the Fire did perform well in the Open Cup against Austin, which was a 2-0 win in Austin. So who knows? And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, there's a chance that the Fire may get a home final for the Open Cup if they
advance that far. But you got to get past Minnesota to do it first, right? And I think it's going to be a tough game.
Probably
we don't know if Chris Brady is going to be available for that one. I would doubt it. It wouldn't be impossible, especially we don't have lineups yet for the U.S. men's national team game, but it wouldn't be impossible for him to be there. It just seems like it's a very tight turnaround. He obviously hasn't been to the squad as a goalkeeper. It's not like you're running the same positional drills that like a lot of the outfield players would be. So that maybe makes it a little bit more likely, but I still think it's probably going to be Jeff Gall in the net for this one. And Jeff Gall has taken the team this far, so I think that you have to sort of just keep on rolling with him for now. And like I don't know, how do you guys feel about this one?
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It feels like a lot like the Houston game a few years ago in the Open Cup, where either everything's going to go shockingly well or just everything's going to fall apart massively. And as long as the ref isn't as stupid as that ref, we should be good. But
do you want some good news?
It's not the same. Please tell me it's not the same ref.
Oh, I don't think they've released the assignments for that yet. But there is now VAR starting at the quarterfinals. So
thank you, Lord.
Unlike that game against Houston, which I really do think like it's one of those things where part of the reason the ref didn't catch some of those things that happened in that match against Houston was because he was, he he'd refereed MLS games and he was used to having that backup. And so I think you stop seeing the game the same way. I think you sort of assume somebody's going to come in and correct you in a way that just doesn't happen when you're the center official and it's a live game and there's no VAR. So, VAR, which, again, kind of could cut both ways, but I think on the whole, you just want a game to be fairly refereed and go from there.
But I think to be perfectly honest, it seems like a game the Fire are probably going to want more than the Cincinnati game. Greg very clearly wants this game. He wants to win the Cup. I believe he even said that the Open Cup was like the primary target this year, I want to say, but I might be wrong there.
I mean, he's also said a bunch of times that the Fire are in it to win every game that they've got. And he certainly didn't. I mean, when you look at the lineup, I mean, like Alan mentioned at the get-go, like one change from the starting 11 that we saw last week. And, that was Barroso coming in for Dean, which it's not like he was holding anything, especially attacking, going back by making that shift. Waited until the 73rd minute to make subs. And that was, Barroso and Guti off. So it's not like he was saving their legs. Joe Bamba went 84 minutes. Zinkernagel went 90 minutes. Like he was not saving legs for the Open Cup game. I think that he believes in the team's ability to get it and recover. The team will just have 1 day of training because of that. So they'll be training Monday. They'll probably have a team meeting and stuff on Tuesday, but just 1 day of kind of doing whatever they're trying to do to get ready for the Minnesota, match specifically, which is not ideal. But then Minnesota only has one more day than that. So it's not the end of the world either way.
It also wouldn't shock me if we were to be a fly in the ear, if we heard that Berhalter was more or less just saying, here's the Cincinnati game, don't get injured. We're focusing on Minnesota more. But Cincinnati, do your best. We don't want to get injured. Which is probably why Zinkernagel got subbed off literally with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I think that part of it was he also just saw that Zinkernagel was, I mean, you're down by a goal, right? So it's still a game that you can get a result in. I think that he wanted to go for the result. And I think he was just sort of pushing to get fresh legs on, even if they weren't, I don't think that you put on Sam Williams for Philip Zinkernagel and thank God that's going to fix the offense. But I think that just making getting fresh legs on, and the team had kind of switched to a 4-4-2, and it had really been playing more like a 4-2-4 for a stretch at that point. He was not holding back from trying to get the result, and it was not holding back from, physical play against Cincinnati. So I think it is just a case of Greg wants the team to be in it to win every game that they play in. And I think that was one. And I think that the game against Minnesota will be one as well. But, yeah. And again, like I said, it's good. I think it was good for the team to experience what they experienced against Cincinnati, because I think that it doesn't take a lot to convince yourself that was a game that the Fire probably feel like I said, I think a point would have been fair. I think if you're a professional athlete and you're hungry, you probably are sitting in a locker room thinking, man, we could have won that. We should have won that, because I know that we have the ability to win it. And I think now you've got another chance after just, a very quick turnaround to go and get that win that you think you already earned against a different opponent in knockout competition.
Yeah. Since the last game that the Fire played in the Open Cup, which was the 3-1 win in New England, well, specifically in Providence, Rhode Island, they've only had the game against Cincinnati, and then also all the way back in May, the game against New York, where they did not win on the road. So it's not a pretty bad track record, honestly.
Tim, you're muted.
Their road form has been one of the stories of the season so far. And again, every reason to expect that to continue. Is a short flight to Minnesota, same time zone, all that stuff. And, having said that, Minnesota have been pretty good at home. They completely demolished Inter Miami back in May, 4-1 at home. And they had an impressive victory over the Sounders at the beginning of June. They've had some good results, but I think the Fire, like, again, they've got every reason to go into this being confident.
Basically. What we're saying is have fun and also win. So, gentlemen, do you have score predictions for the Open Cup game? I'm going to say, because I did say, this is something I said earlier, they were able to pull away the 2-0 win against Austin on the road. I'm thinking it can also be a 2-0 win against Minnesota, and hopefully even the same against whoever wins between San Jose and Austin. And let's get ourselves a final.
I'm going to say 4-2. Fire victory.
Kind of funny that you're going that high. I was thinking the only time that I don't actually have Minnesota had 4 scored against them. I guess San Diego did it. And I think that was a 4-2 loss for Minnesota. But I kind of have 3-2. I feel like this is going to be one of those cup games where it's back and forth. It's kind of messy, even though it's 2 MLS teams and 2 MLS, in an MLS stadium. But those are fun to watch.
The magic of the cup, honestly.
If the Fire do win today, it'll also be the first time in 7 years they've made a semifinal. Granted, 2 of those years were not actually cup years, but still. Or no, 8. No, yes, 7 years.
Okay, DJ's broken, so I think that we're pretty screwed for the rest of the episode. So
to be fair, I was just sitting here thinking, because the Fire made it to 8 out of 8 seasons, they made 6 semifinals between 2011 and 2018. I was like, wait, and then again 2017? No, they lost in Cincinnati.
Fantastic news. So, little quick episode for you guys today. We'll see everyone back after the Open Cup game against Minnesota. We'll be reviewing that game, and we'll also be previewing the first game at Soldier Field for San Diego FC, a highly anticipated game, one that has the supporter section sold out. So, I mean, hey, July games are always fun. So I'm super excited for that one as well. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a concert afterwards. I can't remember who, though.
Danny Lux.
Jason Derulo?
No, yeah. Yeah, it'll always be Jason Derulo. It doesn't matter if he's gone or in prison or whatever.
Oh my days. I just realized that this note that we had. We'll be back later in this week to preview San Diego. The episode will be out as soon as we figure out who Danny Lux is. Okay. And then I think the game against New York Red Bulls is the one that has chance. So, yay.
Indeed.
I feel like this is a good place if any to finish it up. So nice quick episode for you guys. I, as always, have been Alan the Pole with the Gold, joined by my lovely jubbly co-hosts Tim and DJ. We miss you, John, and we don't know we do know where Matt is. He's in the Everglades surviving. So come on, you men in red.